I watched my own funeral from the back of St. Michael's Church, hidden beneath a black hoodie and dark sunglasses, surrounded by people who thought I was dead. The casket at the front was empty, just a prop in the greatest performance of my life. $347,000 in debt, creditors hunting me like wolves, a business partner who'd stolen everything and vanished. I had no other choice. Or so I told myself. My wife Caroline sat in the front row, dressed in black, clutching a handkerchief. My mother sat beside her, rigid as stone. My brother Mitchell was there with his wife. My two children, Wesley, 17, and Bridget, 14, sat between their mother and grandmother. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and remember to subscribe to Tales After Dark for more stories like this. I had staged everything perfectly. A car accident on Highway 101 near Big Sur. A burned vehicle. A body too charred to identify, courtesy of a morgue attendant who owed me a favor, and a corpse no one would miss. The police report was filed. The death certificate was issued. Graham Hollister was officially dead at 43. I should have left then, taken the cash I'd hidden, and disappeared to Ghana as planned. Started fresh, become someone new. But I couldn't leave without seeing their faces one last time, without knowing they would mourn me, without proof that despite everything, the arguments, the distance, the secrets, my family still loved me. That was my first mistake, because what I heard in that church didn't just break my heart. It shattered everything I thought I knew about my own life. Father Brennan called Caroline to speak first. She walked to the podium slowly, dabbing her eyes with the handkerchief. The perfect grieving widow. I leaned forward in my seat, heart pounding. 21 years of marriage. 3 years of dating before that. She knew me better than anyone. What would she say about the man she'd spent her entire adult life with? Graham and I met when we were both students at Stanford, she began, her voice trembling. He was charming, ambitious. He had this way of making you feel like the most important person in the room. I smiled beneath my disguise. That was true. I had always been good with people. But charm, Caroline continued, and her voice changed, grew harder, colder, is just another word for manipulation when it comes from a man like Graham. The smile died on my face. For 21 years I lived with a man who lied as easily as he breathed, who promised me the world and delivered nothing but excuses, who looked me in the eyes and swore he was faithful while sneaking out to meet other women. Murmurs rippled through the church. I saw my mother's head turn sharply toward Caroline. "Yes," Caroline said, addressing the congregation now. "I know this is a funeral. I know we're supposed to say nice things. But Graham is dead, and I refuse to bury him with more lies." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was steady, calm, almost peaceful. The truth is, when they called to tell me about the accident, the first thing I felt wasn't grief. It was relief. The church went silent. I know that sounds terrible, but you don't know what it's like to live with someone who makes you feel invisible, who treats your dreams as inconveniences, who borrows money from your parents and never pays it back, who gambles away your children's school fees and then blames you for not understanding his business strategies. My hands were shaking. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. 3 months ago, I went to see a divorce lawyer. I was going to leave him. I had finally found the courage. She looked at the casket and shook her head. But now I don't have to. God, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it, something freed me, and I am grateful. She returned to her seat without another word. I sat in the back of that church, unable to move, unable to breathe. The woman I had loved for 24 years had just told 300 people she was happy I was dead. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. Because my mother was walking to the podium now, and the look on her face told me everything was about to get worse. My mother, Dorothy Hollister, had always been my greatest defender. When teachers said I was lazy, she said I was creative. When my father called me a failure, she called me a dreamer. When my first business collapsed, she gave me money to start again. She was 71 years old, and I was her firstborn, her favorite, her golden child, or so I had always believed. Graham was born 3 weeks early, she began, her voice paper-thin. I remember holding him for the first time and thinking, this one will give me trouble. A few people chuckled nervously. I was right. From the day he learned to talk, Graham lied. Small lies at first. Who ate the last cookie? Who broke the window? Then bigger lies. Money disappearing from my purse. Report cards that didn't match the ones the school sent. Girls calling the house for a boy who swore he had no girlfriends. She gripped the podium with both hands, steadying herself. I made excuses for him, every time. I told myself he was just finding his way, that he would grow out of it, that he just needed more love, more support, more chances. She looked directly at the casket, and her next words came out like a confession. I was wrong. I enabled him. I protected him from consequences. And in doing so, I helped create a man who hurt everyone around him. I felt tears streaming down my face. Not for me. For her. For the pain in her voice. Last year, Graham came to me. He needed money. Again. He said it was for Wesley's university fees. I gave him $50,000. She paused. I found out later there were no fees. The money went to pay off a gambling debt. He had lied to me for the 100th time, and I had believed him for the 100th time. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. When Mitchell called to tell me about the accident, I cried. I cried for hours. But not just because my son was gone. Her voice cracked. I cried because I finally had permission to stop waiting, stop hoping, stop pretending that one day Graham would become the man I always believed he could be. She turned to Caroline. I'm sorry, my daughter. I'm sorry I raised him. I'm sorry I gave him to you. You deserved better. My mother returned to her seat, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it felt like to be truly seen. Not the version of myself I projected. Not the lies I told. The real me, and my own mother was apologizing for my existence. I should have left then. I should have run. But my brother was walking to the podium, and something in his expression made my blood run cold. Because Mitchell wasn't sad. He was smiling. My younger brother had always lived in my shadow. Quieter. More cautious. Less successful. Or so I had always believed. While I started businesses and made deals and lived loudly, Mitchell worked his boring job at the bank, saved his boring money, and lived his boring life with his boring wife in their boring house. That's what I had always thought. That's the story I had always told myself. I have a confession to make, Mitchell began, and the church grew very still. I'm not here to mourn my brother. I'm here to celebrate. Gasps echoed through the pews. Before you judge me, let me explain. Because there are things about Graham that none of you know. Things that only I know. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. 5 years ago, my brother came to me with a business opportunity. A real estate deal. He needed an investor. Someone to put up the capital while he did the work. He showed me projections. Properties. Returns that seemed too good to be true. Mitchell's smile widened. I said no. Not because I didn't trust the deal. I didn't trust him. So instead, I did my own research. Quietly. And do you know what I found? He unfolded the paper. I found that Graham had already run this same scam on 4 other investors. He would take their money, buy cheap properties in fake names, sell them off, and keep everything. His partners never saw a dime. The congregation erupted in whispers. I felt my heart hammering in my chest. But here's the thing. I didn't report him. I didn't tell anyone. Because I realized something. If I could figure out his scheme, I could use it against him. Chukwuemeka looked at Adaize, then at my mother, then back at the congregation. For 5 years, I've been quietly buying up every debt my brother owed, every loan, every credit line, every gambling marker. I bought them all, at discount, because no one believed they would ever be repaid. I felt the room spin. $347,000. That's how much Graham owed. And now, with him dead, that debt transfers to his estate, to his wife, to his children. He turned to Caroline with something like sympathy. I'm not going to collect, Caroline. I'm forgiving the debt. All of it. Consider it my gift to you. Freedom from the chains my brother wrapped around you. Caroline's face crumpled with confusion and relief. But I want everyone here to know the truth. Graham didn't die in a car accident. He died the way he lived, running from his own consequences. And wherever he is right now, I hope he finally understands what he cost all of us. My brother sat down. My wife was crying. But now the tears looked different. Grateful. And my daughter was walking to the podium. My 14-year-old Bridget. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever she was about to say would destroy the last piece of me that was still holding on. Bridget looked so small standing at that podium. So young. She had always been the quiet one, the observer. While her brother, Wesley, was loud and social, Bridget watched, processed, remembered everything. She pulled a piece of paper from her pocket, a speech she had written. Then she crumpled it up and threw it on the ground. I was going to say nice things, she said, her voice small but steady. I was going to talk about how Daddy taught me to ride a bike, how he used to call me his princess, how he always said I was special. Her hands were shaking. But then I listened to everyone else, and I realized something. Everyone else was telling the truth, and if I told the nice stories, I would be lying. Just like Daddy always did. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. So instead, I want to ask a question. I want to ask it to Daddy, even though he's gone. She looked at the casket, and her eyes filled with tears. Daddy, why wasn't I enough? The church was absolutely silent. When you missed my birthday last year, you said you had a meeting. I found out later you were at a casino. When you forgot to pick me up from school, you said traffic was bad. I saw the text messages on your phone. You were with a woman named Vanessa. I wanted to die. I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me whole. I used to make excuses for you. To my friends. To myself. I told myself that you were busy because you were working hard for us. That you were stressed. That one day, when things got better, you would have more time. She wiped her face with her sleeve. But things never got better, did they? Because it was never about time. It was about choices. And every single day you chose something else over us. She took a shaky breath. So, Daddy, wherever you are, I hope you find whatever you were looking for, because you never found it with us, and now you never will. Bridget walked back to her seat, and my wife wrapped her arms around her. My son Wesley put his arm around them both, and I sat in the back of that church, watching my family comfort each other, and I understood something I had never understood before. They weren't mourning me. They were healing from me. The service should have ended there. It should have been over. But then Father Brennan returned to the podium and said 7 words that changed everything. "We have one more speaker, Vanessa Caldwell." Vanessa. The name echoed through my skull like a gunshot. How did she know about the funeral? Why was she here? And why in God's name, was Father Brennan letting her speak? A woman stood from the middle of the church and walked to the podium. She was beautiful, 32, elegant, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than my wife's entire outfit. Caroline's face went rigid. My mother's hands clenched into fists. "For those who don't know me," Vanessa began, her voice clear and unapologetic. "My name is Vanessa Caldwell. I was Graham's business partner, his confidant, and for the last 2 years, his lover." The church exploded. People were shouting. Someone was crying. Father Okoro tried to restore order. "Please," Vanessa said, raising her hand. "Please. I didn't come here to cause pain. I came here because I have something that belongs to this family. Something Graham hid from all of you." She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Graham told me he was going to leave his wife. He told me that as soon as his business recovered, we would go to London together, start fresh, build a new life." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "I believed him. I believed every word. Until last week, when I found this in his apartment." She opened the envelope and pulled out documents. Photographs, bank statements. Graham didn't have one mistress. He had 4. He told each of us the same story, made each of us the same promises, and he was stealing from all of us. I felt my world crumbling. The carefully constructed lie I had been living. It wasn't just collapsing. It was exploding. "But that's not why I'm here." She walked toward Caroline and held out the envelope. "This is why." Caroline took the envelope with shaking hands. "Those are deeds. Property deeds. To 4 parcels of land in Malibu that Graham bought in my name. They're worth approximately $12 million. He used my identity to hide them from you. From his creditors. From everyone." Caroline's eyes went wide. "I've already signed them over to you. It's the least I can do. Maybe it's the only good thing that comes from any of this." Vanessa turned to face the congregation. "Graham Hollister was a liar, a cheat, a thief. He destroyed my life, just like he destroyed all of yours. But at least now, in death, some small justice can be done." She walked out of the church without looking back. I sat frozen in my seat, trying to process what had just happened. $12 million. Properties I had forgotten I even had. A fortune that could have saved everything, if I hadn't been too busy lying to remember it existed. But the nightmare wasn't over. Because Wesley, my 17-year-old son, was walking to the podium, and he was carrying something in his hand. Wesley had always been the one I understood least. Brilliant like his mother, observant like his sister. But there was something else in him. Something sharp and calculating that reminded me of myself. I should have been afraid of what he was about to say. But by this point, I was numb. What more could possibly be revealed? "I wasn't going to speak today," Wesley said, his voice unnervingly calm. "I figured everyone else would say what needed to be said. But then something happened this morning that changed my mind." He held up his phone. "I got a text message. From a number I don't recognize. It said, 'Watch the back of the church.' Every muscle in my body went rigid. At first I ignored it, but then I started thinking. The accident that killed my father, something about it never made sense to me. The police said the body was too burned to identify. They used dental records, but my father hadn't been to a dentist in 10 years. So where did the records come from?" The church was deathly silent. So this morning, I made some calls. I talked to a friend whose uncle works at the morgue. And guess what I found out? He paused, and his eyes scanned the back of the church, searching. The body in that car wasn't my father. It was a homeless man who died of natural causes 3 days before the accident. Someone paid to have the body switched. Screams, gasps, chaos erupting in the pews. Which means one of two things. Chisholm continued over the noise. Either my father was murdered and someone covered it up, or my father faked his own death and is still alive. His eyes locked onto the back of the church, locked onto me. So, Dad, are you here? Are you watching this? Because if you are, I want you to know something. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at my son as he spoke directly to me. I hoped you were dead. When Mom got the call, I hoped, I prayed that it was real. Because a dead father is easier than a living coward. A dead father is someone I can pretend to miss. But a living father who abandoned us, that's something I'll have to hate for the rest of my life. He put his phone in his pocket. So, if you're out there, Dad, stay dead. Because if you ever show your face again, I will destroy you. Not with violence, with truth. Every lie you ever told. Every person you ever cheated. Every promise you ever broke. I'll make sure the whole world knows exactly who Graham Hollister really was. He returned to his seat. And I finally understood the text message. The anonymous warning. It wasn't from an enemy. It was from my own son. He had known. He had figured it out. And he had set this entire trap. Not to expose me, but to show me exactly what I had done. Exactly what I had lost. Exactly why I deserved to lose it. The service ended in chaos. Police were called. Investigators arrived. The empty casket was opened, confirming what everyone now suspected. But I was already gone, slipping out the back door, running toward the car I had parked 3 blocks away, running toward Mexico, toward my new life, toward escape. But I didn't get far. Mitchell was waiting by my car. He was leaning against the driver's door, arms crossed, a small smile on his face, the same smile I had seen in the church. "Hello, brother," he said. I stopped dead in my tracks. "How?" My voice cracked. "How did you know?" "I've been tracking you for 6 months. He pulled out his phone, showed me a map with a blinking red dot. "That cheap burner phone you bought? I put a tracker in it the day you bought it. You didn't even notice." I felt the phone in my pocket like a brand. "Why?" I asked. "Why go through all this? The funeral, the speeches. Why not just turn me in?" "Because I wanted you to hear it." His smile faded. "Every word, every truth you've been running from your entire life. I wanted you to sit there and listen to what you've done to the people who loved you." I sank to my knees on the pavement. "All my life you treated me like I was nothing," Chukwuemeka continued. "The boring brother, the safe one, the one without ambition. But do you know what I was actually doing while you were busy failing? I was succeeding. Quietly, steadily, building something real." He crouched down to meet my eyes. "I own your debts. I own the evidence of your fraud. I own the testimony of the morgue attendant you bribed. I own you, Obiora. Completely." "What do you want?" I whispered. "I want you to disappear. Not fake disappear. Really disappear. Go to Ghana. Go to wherever you were planning to run. And never come back. Never contact your family. Never let them know you're alive. And if I don't, then I turn everything over to the police. The fraud. The fake death. The insurance claim your wife doesn't even know you filed. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison, and your family will still hate you. At least this way, they get to heal." I looked up at my brother, the boring one, the safe one, the one I had underestimated my entire life. "You planned all of this," I said. "The funeral, Vanessa showing up, Wesley's speech, everything." "Not everything. The truths they told, those were real. I just made sure you were there to hear them." He stood up and stepped away from the car. "Goodbye, Graham. I hope you find whatever peace you can, but you won't find it with us. You never could." He walked away without looking back. I'm writing this from a small apartment in Tijuana. I work as a security guard at a hotel. I make just enough to eat. I have no friends, no family, no one who knows my real name. Every night I replay the funeral in my mind. Every word, every accusation, every truth I had spent my whole life avoiding. My wife was relieved I was dead. My mother apologized for raising me. My brother had been quietly preparing my destruction for years. My daughter asked why she wasn't enough. And my son, my brilliant, calculating son, had orchestrated the entire thing just to make sure I heard it all. I used to think I was the victim, the unlucky one, the man who just couldn't catch a break. I blamed the economy, bad partners, bad timing, everyone and everything except myself. But sitting in that church, listening to the people I loved most in the world describe who I really was, I finally saw the truth. I wasn't unlucky. I was a coward, a liar, a thief, a man who took and took and took and never once stopped to think about what he was destroying. Sometimes I think about going back, confessing everything, begging for forgiveness. But then I remember Wesley's words, "Stay dead, because if you ever show your face again, I will destroy you." He was right. The only gift I can give my family now is my absence. So I stay here, in this small apartment, in this quiet life, haunted by the funeral of a man I used to be. Some people say death is the end, but for me, death was just the beginning of understanding what I had lost, what I had destroyed, what I could never, ever get back. My name is Graham Hollister. I let them think I was dead, and now I know I should have died a long time ago. Not physically, but the man I pretended to be, the lie I built my whole life around. That man should have been buried years ago. Maybe then I could have become someone worth loving. Instead, I let the lie live, and I lost everything real.